I'm going to guess based on my experience. Okay, that'd be great.
It'll happen. We'll read. Yeah, but I think you're like you do with your boys. Yeah. My people will get tough.
I should, but I will.
Oh, I saw that, Mom. I saw that. But she has no.
You know what? I need it alive, but there's I didn't have a chance to get it. Oh, yeah. No, that's for right now. Oh, I'm not going to. Yeah.
Good morning.
About as quiet as it was at 7:45. We are happy to have Mr. Doug Meyer here, technologically challenged as he is.
Apparently, well, the teacher always is.
Yeah. It's a computer issue, not a him issue. Very happy to have him here from Arizona Lutheran Academy. We have been very happy to be part of the Federation for ALA for a long, long time. Many graduates from there in our congregation, and it's an exciting time at ALA, but I'll let him tell you about that this morning.
Thank you. I am really excited to be here. And I'll just jump right in because I know we have kind of a limited time, but it really comes down to this, that I think for all of us, there are times in life when dreams are always a good thing, right? Don't you kind of sit and think about like where you want to go on vacation and what you want to do? And when the dreams turn into reality, that's the awesome part. Because it doesn't always happen that way. But one of the things I've learned, the pastor at the church where I've attended for a number of years, he's a visionary, and we talk all the time about if your dreams aren't big enough, maybe you're limiting God if you don't have those. And so I feel like right now, ALA is really dreaming big as we think about the future. And part of it is we have the ability to dream because of where God has put us right now, but also what he's opened the door with for the future. So let's take a look at just a few things that relate to this. So why are we even thinking like this? Why is now the time to have these big dreams? Well, number one is our current enrollment. We're going to get to some specific figures, but we are in a great place, and we feel like God has put some amazing opportunities in front of us. Number two, where we are financially. I think for all of us, again, you think about its comparison to your own personal life. Sometimes it's more of a struggle. Sometimes it's not as much of a struggle. But when you're better off, you get to think a little bit differently. The third thing is Levine South Mountain is just an exploding area of Phoenix, and it has been for a long time, and it's still continuing to be. Kitty corner from us, 450 homes are going in the next year and a half. And so that's a lot of people. And that's just one development. If you've never been to Levine, it was when I got to ALA 29 years ago, it was all cotton fields and farmland and horse property. And some of the alum probably remember what it was like driving down to ALA. And it was pretty desolate driving into ALA. Now it's a traffic nightmare because there's way too many houses down there. So it's a lot different. And our community, most of all, needs Jesus. Crosswalk, the closest church to us, is finding that out every single day in our ministry, and so are we at ALA. And then the last thing is, why else can we think big? And that's the partnership that we have. As I talk to our donors, as I talk to our federation members, and listening to the people in our churches, there's a strong desire to support ALA, and they've done that through a variety of different means. I love this passage from Ephesians 3. To him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus. And again, this is God. God does more than we can ever think about sometimes. So we want to honor that. How about if I turn it on? I am technologically challenged. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our blessings right now. So our current enrollment is 205. If you were in first service, you heard me say this is the highest that we have ever been. Okay, that's just awesome. We have had 4 straight years where our income projections have met or exceeded what we wanted to. Basically, we're bringing in more money than we're spending. That is an awesome problem to have because it's allowing us to set ourselves up for the future. We took in $1.17 million in tax credit donations in 2020, 2021. And my wife is our admissions coordinator. She's also our tax credit guru as far as understanding the system, because the number one thing she does in admissions is explain the system to parents. Number one, how to solicit donations, how to get people to support you and your child, but also how to apply for donations. And we were looking back, she's in her 9th year, and 9 years ago, we took in a little over $400,000. So we went 2.5 times in the last 8 years. And again, only God can make that happen. So, but it is also faithful people who are learning and faithful people who are understanding. So that's an awesome thing. The next thing is academically, we continue to believe that God is the most important part of what we do. Jesus is the center of everything that happens on our campus. And we can never, ever obviously forget that, but we can never stop making that the most important. But we are also a school. So fundamentally, what we want to do is be able to educate kids for the future. And when you look at where we're at, we continue to have strong test scores. Our kids are going into college. The last couple of years have been a little tougher. The pandemic year actually made a lot of difference for academics institutions last year, but typically 95% or more of our kids go on to college, either 2-year, 4-year, and usually it's the military that's not that. But when we look at where our graduates are at and where our current kids are heading towards, great test scores, again, college success, military, their careers, things like that. So we know that we're doing the right things because we can see it. We've had a ton of recent facility upgrades. I'm not going to go through all of them, but 5 years ago, we built a brand new multi-purpose building. We have upgraded our plaza with a shade structure. We have remodeled and renovated a number of our classrooms. We completely redid all of our bathrooms, our locker room on campus. And anybody who's been on our campus, I jokingly say, but it's not such a joke. When I came to LA 29 years ago, our locker rooms were only 7 years old. I thought they looked like they were 50 years old 7 years ago. And when they were 7 years old, they were a dump then, and they were a dump for 28 years. It's hard to say that, but it's just true. And when we changed it, boy, what an amazing thing. So that's an example. And just, what we've done to try to enhance our facilities to make a better experience for our kids matters. Our staff, we have turned over 60% of our teaching staff in the last 5 years. Again, in ALA's history, stability is usually a word that we used a lot. I think there were years, we would go like 5 years and not make any calls because nobody ever left and we didn't bring anybody new. Well, now all of a sudden we've got a brand new group and it's awesome. God keeps saying, hey, you could use this person. And he sends us great people. So we are really excited about the staff that we have. And then the other thing is that, as we all know, again, there's always a correlation to our personal lives. Debt is something that can really hamper you. We know there's good debt and bad debt. People talk about those kinds of things. But ALA's debt only resides in one place, and that is our long-term notes. It's money that people lent to us back when the school was originally built in 1986. And we financed the entire building of our school without any actual bank loans. It was all done through members and Federation members who donated to us. And that number went up and down. The late 2000s, when everybody was feeling the financial crunch, were a negative for us because we had to borrow more money at that point. But even when I first started in this role, there were times when we were still struggling at ALA. Well, we haven't taken out a new note. We haven't asked anybody for anything in over 4 years, and we've paid down about $250,000 in debt over the last 3 or 4 years. And now we're getting to the point where our debt is at such a manageable place that we really don't even think about it anymore. So, and on top of that, a few years ago, we received some large estate gifts, one mammoth estate gift of $1.8 million. And along with some other smaller ones. And so we've got a nice nest egg in the bank for where we're going to go next as well. And again, very rarely has ALA been able to say that in their history. So we're talking about why God is setting us up right now. Just a real quick thing. We are about kids. And I know facts and figures don't always interest us. But I'll just touch on a few quick things. Number one is 62% of our kids at ALA are from WELS congregations. That is a lot different than a lot of other WELS high schools across the country, especially back in Minnesota and Wisconsin. They would probably be in the 95 to 100% range. But we are a mission school, meaning that we are all about Jesus. And so if we have kids who already know about Jesus because they've been raised in a church and they think Jesus is an important part of their life, great. We want as many of those kids as possible because they build our culture. And they're great partners in sharing God's word. But we also have a lot of kids who don't know Jesus. And so a lot of the kids that come from our local community, some of them are very strong Christians. They have been raised in a church and they are committed to the gospel and they think it's a big deal. But we also have kids who are not. And so that's where we're at. Another thing that has changed a lot is that almost half of our students live in Levine, South Mountain. Again, when I first got to ALA and even 10 years ago, the majority of our kids were driving from Glendale or Tucson or Tempe or Mesa or someplace like that. But now only about half of our kids are making those commutes. And so it's changing the nature of our school a little bit. We do have 18 Tucson students, including 8 freshmen. Out of Redeemer's 10 graduates last year, we got 8. That is amazing. That is awesome. I went away for high school. Maybe some of you did as well. And I would never have sent my kids away. 2 hours I would have. If I'd had to drive from Phoenix to Tucson, I would have done it. I would not have sent my kids halfway across the country. I did not want to have my kids grow up that way. My parents were fine with it, which was fine with me too. But I love it that all of these Tucson families have made ALA a priority again. So we are super excited about that. I think it's just a great, great thing. 13 international students, 15% of our student body is unchurched. That means mission opportunities. One of the things I love to share is anytime we get a baptism on campus, it is probably one of the most exciting days on campus. One of our international students from Vietnam was baptized last spring, right near the end of the year. And, it's, first of all, adult baptisms are neat in general, but with a high school kid, I mean, they're smiling, they're laughing. It's just like the most motivational thing. And and then, his friends are excited. So that's what our goal is. One of our challenges every year is housing 37 students. So it's great to have 18 Tucson kids, but we got to find a place to put them every single year, along with our 13 internationals, along with our kids from the reservation, along with, we have a student from Las Vegas this year. Her dad's a pastor up there. And, it's going to be a big challenge as we look to the future. What are we going to do with all of our housing students? But we'll gladly take on that challenge. And then I think a big thing about students at ALA is participation is one of the most important things. I always used to say this when I taught freshmen back at the very beginning that, school is school, let's face it. When you're 14 or 15 years old, are you really all that excited about going to English or math or biology or history class most days? You probably aren't. You're doing it because you're in school. Except for AP Euro, right, Hannah? That was the best class ever that you could go to. Yeah, that was mine. But other than that, let's face it, school is kind of school. It's everything else. It's the social aspect with your friends. It's being in athletics. It's participating in fine arts. It's student council. It's all that kind of stuff. And we have an awesome participation in our school. I think it's what makes us who we are, because kids can do as little or as much as they want. But really, no one is excluded from participating in something because there's a place out there for them. So we have a ton of that. All right, let's see. So just a couple little quick snapshots. Give a little. I know you probably can't see everybody's faces exactly, but one of the things about our school is these are some of our fall sports pictures. And we also, it's what happens academically as well. So the one on the upper left, that's some of our junior kids making a religion presentation. On the far right, that's biology kids. That's freshmen down on the bottom right doing a periodic table exercise in physical science. So we're seeing some seniors in the middle doing a religion class, again, presentation, and then our choir on the bottom left. But one of the things about our school too is it's our diversity, I think, that makes us really strong. It's our diversity in our backgrounds of where our kids came from. It's our diversity ethnically. It's our diversity in just how kids think. And I think that's a really strong thing as we move forward. All right, so we got to make this stuff into reality now. Dreams are great, but where are we going in the future? So last spring, we spent a large amount of time gathering information from our stakeholders. So we had meetings with parents, we had meetings with just Federation members, we met with our pastors up in Payson, teachers, all kinds of people, because we wanted to find out what the strengths and weaknesses were of ALA. What were we doing well? What do we need to improve? And from that, we had a big meeting in June with about 15 people, and we basically wrote our strategic plan over a period of 2 days, looking forward to the future. And so the new buzzword in a lot of WELS churches and schools is this VTO, Vision Traction Organizer. So basically, it means you got stuff to do and it holds you accountable. So we wrote a plan with 1, 3, and 6 year goals for where ALA wants to be. And then we put benchmarks in there. And now we have a committee of 6 people, our principal, our academic, athletic director, our Christian leadership director, admissions coordinator and me, there's 6 of us. We meet every week or every 2 weeks, and we all have accountability benchmarks. We got to go to every meeting and go, did you do A, B, and C? The answer is yes or no. Or I'm still working on it. But we have gotten a ton of accomplished already since we started the process back in June. And then we also have a plan for marketing and enrollment and an outreach as well, because we know that there's a variety of avenues that we have to reach out to try to again have kids in our school who number one would fit our profile to some degree. Not that we're overly selective, but ALA is tough academically, and in our neighborhood, a lot of kids who come in do not have a good academic background. The public school system in Levine, South Mountain is a disaster. And I have very good friends who teach in it. So it's not a personal thing towards the teachers who are there. It's more of an administrative and probably even on top of that, a parental thing in our neighborhood, where one of my wife's best friends is a public school principal in the neighborhood. She had a K-8 school, and they do not assign homework because they can't give it to them because there's no compulsion for them to do it. So can you imagine getting to 8th grade and never having done homework? And then you walk into ALA. Yeah, that doesn't really go very well. And so we don't just say kids like that can never come to our school. We have a student success coordinator who works with our kids who are on the lower end, kids with 504s or IEPs, helps them with organization, tutors them. In fact, we added a second person this year because we didn't have enough help in that area. So those are things where we don't want to limit ourselves by simply saying we can't serve someone if we can find a way to serve them. We have ESL religion classes for kids who come in and don't know anything about Jesus. Might be our international. Sometimes it's kids from the neighborhood. So we're always looking for more ways to connect with people so that they understand who we are and what we can do for them and how Jesus can impact their life. Our board has reorganized itself in the past year or so. We've created some board committees to help advise the board, and the board has continued to do a great job of being this overarching group that just keeps us on track for our mission and our purpose and makes big picture plans. So I talked a little bit about our enrollment growth, and really it's coming from 2 ways. Our feeder schools took a big hit over the last 10 to 15 years. So I was on the school board at Emmanuel and Tempe for a long time. When I first got on the school board, I think we had 145 kids in K-8 in those days. Well, now they're right about 100. So that's definitely a downturn, but they were a little lower than that. And that's kind of typical of a lot of different schools. But now we've seen some stabilization. If there was one, well, there's probably more than one, but you have to look hard. If there was a positive out of the COVID year, it's that ALA and our feeder schools were in school. Kids were learning in person almost every single day. We had 2.5 weeks last year. We had to take a little COVID pause because we had too many teachers out mostly. But other than that, we were in school all the time. And you guys know, especially if you have kids, you know that interaction with each other, that's called normalcy. Sitting at home by yourself, staring at a computer screen. God did not make us that way. God made us to be social creatures, right? He looked at Adam and said, he's alone. That's not right. So he makes someone to be with. And then there's 8 billion people on the earth now, and we are social creatures, meant to interact with each other, meant to have relationships. Those relationships fulfill us. They help us. Sitting, again, I can't imagine having a kindergartner or a 3rd grader or a 5th grader the last year and a half if I had to have them in school that way. And I realize some schools didn't have a choice. Again, I'm not trying to knock what they were doing. I'm just trying to say it's a blessing that we could do what we did. And so our feeder schools generally got an uptick in enrollment last year because they were in school. And now we have kids that are in our school because of that. So there was, I can think of a number of examples, but one that comes to mind is a Tucson student. She went to Redeemer last year in 8th grade because they were in school and her school wasn't. She's unchurched and now she's at ALA. That's crazy when you think about that her parents were willing to do that. But that's the influence of the other kids in her class, the influence of the other parents, the influence of the teachers, and what our schools bring. So Redeemer started the process, and we're just carrying it out. The other thing is our exposure within Levine South Mountain. I know that veteran ALA families probably know this is true, but we've been on the same campus since 1987. And I'll run into people who lived in Levine for 20 years and they go, oh, that's a school? How do you not know this? But the fact is, that's true, but that's changing. When you have half of your student body live in Levine, that makes a big difference because now word of mouth, it's like spreading the gospel, right? Word of mouth, inviting someone to church, sharing Jesus with them, that's how the gospel gets spread. And so the word about ALA gets spread that way too. So we are thankful for the awareness, the loyalty that a lot of our parents have shown in sharing what they love about it. That's great. And then, like I said, our community is growing. Educationally, it's not awesome. And so we fill a niche for families that are really looking for a positive education. And then the most important thing being that a lot of families are looking for the family atmosphere, the Christian atmosphere. They don't necessarily say we need Jesus or my son needs Jesus or my daughter needs Jesus, but that's really what we have the opportunity to give them, and they want what we have. So that's how we're starting to turn those things into reality. Okay, so now here's some concrete things for the short term. So we're at 205 this year. We're projecting 216 for next year. And we finished last year at 184. So that would be a 30-person rise in 2 years. And that's based on very solid figures, not us saying, oh, we hope these kids. No, this is based on what we know we have coming in. And so we're adding 2.5 teachers for next year. We've never added that many teachers ever in ALA's history. When we went to the board with that, we were kind of like, are they going to buy this? That we really have these kids? And they said, this is awesome. And they voted right away. So we already have added a half-time teacher for Spanish and math next year. And we have 2 calls that we'll make tomorrow. One for a science STEM teacher and one somewhere in the humanities. We don't know exactly if they'll teach English, religion, history, some combination of those 3 things. So that's great. For next year, we're going to shoehorn everybody into the current facilities that we have, but it'll basically be like this. Every classroom, I'll teach, and then on my off hour, if it's my classroom, I'll have to leave because someone else is coming in. And so all of our classrooms are going to be busy every single hour of the day next year. So we are going to be maximizing our space, whether it's classrooms, music, athletics. And then we're going to probably have to make some short-term decisions on things that we're going to do because by 23, 24, even if we have moderate growth after that, we won't have anywhere to put kids. So we're going to have to make decisions. And so to that end, our board created a site plan committee. And so we're looking at possible new facilities. And along with that, we have to pay for it. So we have to have a capital campaign to be able to do that. But that is, this is awesome stuff. I love this. And I'm sharing just personally kind of. So I got to ALA in 1983. And probably the mid-90s, and I'm going to feel bad if some of you were there then, but the mid-90s were not probably the best time in ALA's history. Our enrollment wasn't very big. We just didn't feel like we had a lot of positive momentum, although there were a lot of great kids there. It's not about the kids. Some of my favorite kids I've ever taught were in those classes, and they were great kids. But it just felt like we were stuck in neutral and we were not going anywhere. And again, the culture wasn't always what we wanted it to be, I don't feel like. And I think that in the life of a school, there's those ups and downs. Like I talked to people from the early 80s into the mid 80s. They just have this amazing love for ALA, and so many of them. And I talk, and they're just so excited about it. That's great that you feel that way. And so now I look at where we are. And again, it's just this unique thing to say we can make a difference. So as we look at what we could possibly do in our school, obviously we're going to need more classrooms. As we address our STEM needs, we need science labs and technology labs that are more functional. We just don't have, like, our average classroom is not very big. And that's unfortunate. And by the way, we usually tout our student to teacher ratio, but I'm going to be honest with you, we got a lot of classes with 25 kids in it now. which is better than a lot of places, but we don't like that because that's just not as much interaction. I was talking to one of our science teachers the other day, and he said, I had 8 kids sick the other day, and it was kind of nice because I went from 28 to 20 in class, and we actually had a really good discussion because I wasn't doing as much classroom management. So that's why we need bigger classrooms for things like science, and we just need rooms that we can get people in effectively. Like a lot of schools, people think you can share space between music and athletics. By the way, if you're ever on a school building committee, don't think that. Okay, it's not really a good plan because it doesn't work because you're both too busy. You both got stuff going on, you know. So getting a new gym with more meeting space and better locker rooms and things like that, as well as a worship and fine arts center that would be separate, those would be great things. And they're in a plan. Expand our offices. We have our staff hidden in little corners all over the campus, which is not a bonus most of the time. My wife's the admissions coordinator, and she's not easy to find some days. But that's the only place, and we just built that office a year ago because we had space. We could definitely use some upgrades to our athletic facility, specifically putting in a track, new bleachers, things like that. We've been ongoing in discussions about a dorm for 5 years now, and they were really hot for a while because I said we were housing 37 kids this year. 4 years ago, we were housing 48. And that was because our international population had just shot up for 1 year, and now it's kind of leveled off as America and China don't get along very well. That hurt the international population across America. But that's okay because the international kids that we have now, I think, are much more grateful for the education that we have. Kids from Vietnam and Korea, Thailand, and Germany, Germany, Italy, and France is where our kids are from. And they really fit in really well. And then again, remodeling our current classroom. So saying all that, just going to give you a little snapshot of what our campus looks like. So in Levine, our current campus is on the bottom, and the little green thing on the left, that was a building that we built in 2016, but we don't have an aerial shot since then. We got a couple kids with drones. I got to put them to work on campus. But the green border on the top is the land we bought in 2016. It's 3.6 acres, and this is true to scale. You can see that it literally is the same size as our current footprint. So we can double the amount of buildings we have on that current space, on that new space, which is kind of what we have in mind. All right. So if you look at the drawing up there, I know it's kind of, you're not meant to necessarily read all the words, but our current campus is the existing classrooms on the right over here. Okay. And then the current gym. And I'm kind of colorblind, so I think it's green or yellow or whatever it is right in there. And then the locker rooms and the den are there. But everything going from here, these new locker rooms, the kind of pinkish color, and then the new gym, worship, fine arts, classroom, that would all be brand new. And we would more than double the space on our campus if we were able to do it. So we had these plans drawn about a year and a half ago by an architect, so that we could get a visual, and we spent a lot of time deciding what were the key factors we would want in these new buildings. So just to give you sort of this would be a view. This would, if you were standing on the corner of 27th Avenue and Southern, which is on the north side of our campus, you'd be looking at a brand new classroom building as you saw that. And then you come, and this is still the main entrance to our campus, but the office would be much, much bigger, the building in the front. It would be actually about triple in size. And we have some new roof lines. One of the things about ALA is the long-standing joke when I got there was, since they never painted the brick for the first 10, 12 years, was it did look like a prison. And, kids make that joke about high school anyway. Well, we didn't just have to make the joke. It looked like that, okay? So it doesn't look like that anymore, but this would give us a much better look. And then kind of walking down, you go through what is our current plaza, and then you get down towards this long, I love the way the architect designed it. She's an awesome lady, and her Christianity is very important to her. And the focal point, if you look way back in there, is a massive cross. And the entire campus kind of narrows down to this cross, and that would be right on Southern Avenue because Jesus is what we are. So there would be again a second gymnasium on the left. As we went through, You'd have a new chapel fine arts center with glass. By the way, nothing ever looks exactly like this by the time you get done doing everything. But this is just, you gotta have something to dream about. Gathering space for kids to hang out, and then a classroom building that would have basically, I think it would be 8 classrooms, top and bottom, with the expansion for more. All right, so that kind of leads us to why, again, I want to be here and want to share this with you, and that is that there's a variety of ways that our federation members can help us, and you can fit in any one of those ways. We know that God He asked us to pray because He wants us to connect with Him, and so the more prayers we get for our school, the better. Donating to the tuition tax credit. You currently have 4 Grace members at ALA, so anything you can do to help them would be an awesome thing. So Emma's sitting in here, and along with Naomi Kasulki and the Farley boys, we got 4 of them, and there's 14 other kids from Tucson. So anything that if you were able to donate to the tuition tax credit, that would be awesome. I share this because of the possibilities, but of course, what the information I was given, less than 10% of all the Wells members in Arizona access the tax credit. And with that, we still have huge, huge blessings from that, but imagine the blessings that we could get on top of that for Redeemer and ALA and Eastport and Peridot and the other schools in the Phoenix area. If you know someone who's interested in a high school or is thinking about it, and maybe they're even, again, we understand it's a huge sacrifice to come from Tucson to Phoenix, but we're willing to try to make that work any way we can. We have so many programs that are supported. Our ALA fund supports our operations, financial aid. So our goal is to raise $100,000 every single year to give away on top of the tuition tax credit. Last year we raised 103, so that was a huge blessing. We have a lot of specific programs that take in needs, and also our financial aid endowment. As I said at the end of the last service, and if you come to second service, you'll hear a little plug for this as well, but we're trying to connect with our alumni. So if you know some, or your kids are, or you are, we would love to have your cell phone and email address, not so that we can bombard you with junk, trust me. Okay, that's not what we're trying to do. But if you want to go to alacademies.org/alumni, put that in. We'll send you $5 to Starbucks, and you can go buy yourself a cup of coffee. That's probably barely what it costs to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Another couple of years of inflation, it might be 9. But that's kind of where we're at. And again, we have my admin, Jen Bodie, is probably one of the premier social media people that I know. She is so good with it. And so whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel where anything that happens on ALA's campus is pretty much streamed on our YouTube channel. So you can watch all those kinds of things or subscribe to our e-news. So, this is where our school is, and this is the blessings that God has given us. And I appreciate being able to share them with you because we see them every day. And I think especially as teachers, you show up and it's like your job, right? It is your job. Our teachers are showing up every day going, there's a lot to do today. And, you kind of get in that. And what I get the privilege of, and I try to remind them, and they're good at understanding this too, is that it is a lot bigger than us. And when you kind of step back sometimes and you get that little bigger view of the ministry that God has put us in, you get a real appreciation for the families that we get to serve, for the federation that's generous, for the mission and ministry that we're doing. I'm just going to finish with, so we, as part of our drive for financial aid this fall, we have a $20,000 challenge grant. So we've got some donors that have already given us $20,000 of challenging other people to meet that. But I interviewed one of our students, and we've shared her story a little bit on our website and in a letter, and we've got some videos on our YouTube channel about her as well. But she and her mom, very dysfunctional early life. They were living in Colorado, and Dad has really pretty much never been a part of her life other than for the first year or two, which of course she doesn't remember. And her mom worked for the post office, And so, like a lot of civil servants, she decided she wanted to live in Phoenix because she had some family there, but it was a long process of transferring. You can't just go out and transfer to Phoenix. So she's been on this odyssey to get to Phoenix, a little closer to her parents and some family, so that she and her daughter could just be around God's word and be around family to support them. So they went, so from Denver, they moved to Carlsbad, New Mexico. It's a great tourist town if you're going to visit the caverns, right? I'm not so sure based on their experience it's a great place to live all the time. Then they were here in Tucson, and they liked their time in Tucson, but they were really on search for a Christian school that they could find. And it was interesting, the Christian school they were in Carlsbad, New Mexico was a really small Christian school, and it was the worst experience they'd ever had because they were so small that when they got there, and Cindy was in 3rd grade, she was a total outsider and nobody let her in. She ate lunch by herself for like 80 days straight, you know, and because they were just this close-knit little community, but they weren't very mission-minded. And so anyway, moving through, they finally get to Phoenix, and they find a great Christian school, and then they end up at ALA. But her personality is what I wish every one of our kids could feel about our school and the work God is doing there. She's just got this natural exuberance. And the reality is a lot of kids probably do feel like she does. They just don't know how to show it. Like she's just out there all the time. And she's this big personality. But it is just so cool to see that she loved the last school she was at. And she was talking about the fact that she was really scared to go to high school. She's like, I don't think it can be better than this. She liked her Christian school. She goes, on the first day I got there, I realized I was pretty much forgotten about my last school. It was so much better. When I got to ALA, and she's found this great community of kids. So again, that's not the same story for everyone, but there are a lot of kids at our school feeling like that, and I'm just thankful that God's given us that opportunity. So I know I'm running short to close to the end of my time, so I do have a couple minutes if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go. Go ahead.
What is the STEM stand for?
Science, technology, engineering, and math. So about 5 to 10 years ago, American schools realized that our kids were falling behind nationwide in these, things, the jobs that were out there, and people saw it. So it's one of the ways that we can train kids for a little different future than we might have trained for 20 years ago, a little more focused way. So, yeah. Kind of weird talking about both sides.
Do you have special programs, like if maybe somebody wants to be a pastor or a teacher in our church schools? Do you have special programs like that?
So we don't necessarily have a special program that deals with that, but we have 2 people on our campus pastor, Brad Bodie, and then we have a new position called Christian Leadership Director. And his name is Ben Creevy, and he's been an amazing blessing coming to our school too. And one of their primary jobs is to recruit for the ministry and to support those kids when they're at ALA. So what we do is kids who are interested, we arrange trips to go up to MLC so they can visit and get to know. And then the MLC recruiters take special time with them when they come. And then we do have, sometimes we'll do something called Taste of Ministry, where we'll take kids to grade schools or let a student shadow with a pastor at times so they can understand that role a little bit better. So we don't have any special classes or anything, but we do make it a focus to try to expose kids so that they have that inclination they can do that. Go ahead.
I guess what I mean about special program is like, do you have certain classes that they have to take in order to get into the college for ministry?
No, Martin Luther College has actually made itself a little bit more accessible to kids who don't know that they want to be pastors and teachers until later. And so their emphasis is really on kids that are willing to do the work and have an interest in ministry. So our kids are prepared, like, it used to be years and years ago, they wanted kids to have Latin if they were going to be a pastor or things like that. That's not nearly as important. Spanish is almost as important in many cases now, or other languages. So we do not have any special classes. Jeff,
Speaking of the Taste of Ministry part, we hosted two gentlemen, young students here. They're both pastors now, Isaac and JD. So we did that here. They got to do literature, or some of the readings. Pastor Cole helped set that up. So I mean, that's one of the ways they came down here, even though they're from Phoenix.
100% success.
Yeah.
so it's about sending them to the right spot, right? Isn't that the right mentor? We get how that works. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Thank you for all your time. I really appreciate your attention and your encouragement this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
That's it. I think next back to the Here We Stand series. So, see you over in church if you weren't there already.
Yeah, I'll just grab my stuff off there.